establishing the state, there was a much bigger problem. It was a water problem. It was a water management problem. California chose to prioritize endangered fish like the Chinook salmon.
This is how you save the salmon populations, bro. Stop making them do the fish ladders in the hatcheries. Let the homies breed in the wild.
This is how you save an endangered species. You provide habitat.
Oh, they're building the nest right there.
Salmon populations are crashing all over California, and the number one reason is dams. We have over 1,000 dams in California, and they have dammed up rivers that these fish need to spawn. This is not natural, and this is why they are going extinct.
Look, they reach the top of the fish ladder where they're gonna get killed, and then humans will artificially spawn the eggs. But their instincts are telling them to keep running, keep doing the salmon run, so they're trying to hop over into the other tanks where the fish are also gonna get killed and artificially spawn. This is not the answer, bro. This is not how you save salmon. If you want to save salmon, you gotta provide habitat.
California has completely failed our native fish, and it is time to rethink our solutions. Hatcheries are not the answer. We need to provide habitat and let these fish spawn in the wild. Save Chinook salmon and fuck PG&E.
Says that he has a new plan that will protect threatened fish species that he says are critical for the ecosystem across a good portion of California. Thanks for joining us for Fox 40 News at 5:30. I'm Eric Harriman.
And I'm Nikki Lorenzo. Fox 40 Capitol reporter Eitan Wallace explains what the governor is hoping to do and what he says will happen if action is not taken soon.
The roaring sound of rapids coupled with the sight of rushing water. You're looking at the Daguerre Point Dam along the Yuba River in rural Yuba County, north of Sacramento.
In the future, what do you mean by it?
Today, Governor Gavin Newsom toured a portion of the dam as he unveiled a plan to restore this part of the Yuba River, all in an effort to save threatened fish species, including the Chinook salmon, the steelhead, the green and white sturgeon, and the Pacific lamprey, all creatures who rely on this waterway for their habitat and eventual repopulation. Here's the background on the fish species in question. The adults spawn way upriver in the cold Sierra Nevada, away from predators. Their babies then come all the way downriver to the ocean, where they live for a few years before they themselves come back upriver to spawn. Only problem, according to state leaders, that dam gets in the way.
This is important. This is about preserving a species for generations.
The fish, per the governor, are integral parts of the ecosystem here, but he also makes clear the 117-year-old dam has done its job of blocking sediment and enhancing flood protection for nearby areas. That's why, instead of destroying the dam, he's backing a plan he believes most Californians will get behind: the construction of this new $60 million on-ramp-looking waterway that will allow fish to sidestep the dam and easily swim up and downstream without getting stuck in the dam.
We're moving. There's real progress. And there's progress in an area that, frankly, gets under-resourced.
The project, he says, is one of more than 24 like it across the state. Why his team says it matters?
If salmon are healthy, it means our rivers are healthy. And when salmon suffer, it's an indication that our rivers are suffering.
And that, according to state leaders, will eventually impact the environment, including human beings. As for now, though, while California faces a shortfall of about $32 billion Governor Newsom acknowledges could lead to cuts, he says when it comes to this project, the state is fully invested.
Despite a modest deficit, we're holding the line on these projects, and we're moving them forward. And these are tangible. You can see the fruits of your tax dollars. So as a taxpayer, I like things like this, you know, before and after, as long as we deliver on time and on budget and hold ourselves to a higher level of accountability.
And this project certainly will not just happen overnight. Officials still need to go through what could be a lengthy process to obtain building permits, and after that it could take a few years for construction to complete. Reporting in Yuba County, covering local news that matters, Eitan Wallace, Fox 40 News.
And want to point out that we did reach out to state GOP lawmakers for reaction, but they did not have a comment. A new historic...
Critics, including President Trump, slammed the decision, arguing that the water should be conserved for firefighting and agriculture and human consumption.
Jeff, it's great to have you on. Welcome.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
We want to talk to you about water today. You're a water expert. You've been involved with water in California. And there is a letter from water agencies across California that's asking California government to actually reconsider how much water they're releasing to the ocean, if I'm correct on this. Before we get into this, I want to understand if you can give us a background on what's going on with water in California.
The California we know today is really only possible because we move water around. The southern part of the state, where a lot of the population is, in the Central Valley, where there's a lot of agriculture, really wouldn't be able to sustain either the population or the agriculture without major water systems and projects being built, many of them in the early 20th century and some even before that. In terms of enough local water, we have the Los Angeles River, we have the San Gabriel River in Southern California, we have the Santa Ana River. Those are the kind of the three main rivers that drain the Southern California plain. When they have water in nature is in the winter. That water falls on the mountains of Southern California and heads straight out to the ocean. And so fast and in such volumes, we have a difficult time controlling it. So there are some groundwater basins in Southern California, but there's really only enough native water in Southern California to support maybe 5 to 10% of the population that exists there. And San Diego really, doesn't have much groundwater at all because it's sitting on much more of a rock geology, and there's really not much groundwater in San Diego. So San Diego wouldn't be possible in any significant. So if you think of Southern California being San Diego, Orange County, Los Angeles, absent San Bernardino, absent the importation of water from hundreds of miles away, Southern California wouldn't be possible. Same thing in the San Joaquin Valley. In the San Joaquin Valley, there's about 5 million acres of irrigated agriculture. It's really hard to fathom. You have mile after mile after mile of agriculture, about 250 different crops that are grown in the Central Valley. It is absolutely a marvel. But it wouldn't be possible if we didn't have these water systems. Now, in the agriculture context, it's a combination of water projects, surface water that comes actually off of the Sierras, which are right there to the east of the San Joaquin Valley, and some of this Northern California water that comes in, and some of the San Joaquin River, and then some groundwater. And it's a vast groundwater basin, but it's been pumped heavily. And so we're in the process of having to balance out that pumping and reduce pumping so that we're sustainable. We've actually mined a lot of water out of the San Joaquin Valley. But all of this is context for this Delta region because as I described this, the Delta is really kind of the valve through which the two major surface water projects that both sustain the Central Valley agriculture and Southern California, Central California, and the coast. This water has to physically move between Northern California and then the central and southern part of the state. And it passes through the Delta. And the Delta is about 700,000 more or less acres, so it's a very large geographical region. Originally, it was marshland and all the things that you can imagine a delta would be. And as people came to California, they basically began to berm this area up and dry out these drier, kind of move the water in the delta into channelize it. It's a complex area, and it's a mixing zone between fresh and salt water. Really, the only thing that keeps the salt water from inundating the delta, much of which is below sea level, is freshwater outflow from these rivers. So you have to keep fresh water moving out all the time to keep the salt water from coming back. And so that's really where we get to this letter, because California built these systems and was operating them. And there was a big change in policy in California in the early 1990s. Some of it was deliberate. There was a reauthorization necessary for the federal portion of this surface water system, the Central Valley Project. And there was a bill passed in the Congress that was signed by the president that actually reallocated some of the yield of that system to the environment, about 10% of the yield of that. About 1 million acre feet out of about.
Is it out of the fresh water?
Yes, and there was a policy decision to dedicate some of that water to the environment. But at the same time, there are also 2 species of fish that were listed as endangered. There was a Delta smelt that was listed as endangered, and there was the winter run Chinook salmon, which obviously lives, part of its life in the ocean, and part of its life it comes up to spawn, and so it goes through this Delta area. And when it spawns, it needs very cold water in order to be successful in its spawning. And so the point is that the Delta area is got ecological value. and
without these water projects. Can you tell us more?
There's a quote from a guy named, an author actually, named Hinton Helper, who was from North Carolina. In 1855, Hinton Helper came out to California. We had just become a state. In 1850, California became a state. Had the gold rush going on, 1849. And there was all this hype in the rest of the country about California, this land of gold. So he came out and he spent a couple of years traveling the state, going to every little community and actually counting how many buildings and what the economic value was and what the economic potential was of this new state in the Union. And he wrote articles, and when he got back to North Carolina, he compiled these articles into a book called California Gold, Fact or Fiction. And in his book, he says, balancing resource against defect and comparing territory with territory, California is the poorest state in the Union. Other than some interesting metal, her valleys will grow sufficient breadstuffs to support sparse populations. Now that is what California looked like to him in 1855. And obviously it is dramatically different from the California that we experience today. And what made the difference? What made the California we see today grow out of the California he saw 175 years ago? And there's one thing that made that happen, besides phenomenal people, but it was moving water around. Moving water from areas of abundance to areas of need, and literally causing the desert to bloom. So that system formed the foundation of building the state of California. And without it, and this is something we don't pay a lot of attention to, but if we don't take care of it, it has an impact on who we are and what we are.